Welcome to Straight from the Gavel. I'm your host, Dave Barber, coming to you today from the lounge of the House of Representatives here at the State Capitol building on Smith Hill. And each and every week at this time, we like to invite a member of the General Assembly in and discuss the goings-on here in Providence and at the Capitol. And we're very delighted to have a gentleman that we've had the privilege of interviewing many times before, and it's great to have him back because he certainly holds a prestigious position inside this building. He is the leader of the House Democrats, the Honorable Leader Nicholas Mattiello. Leader, good to see you again, sir.
Dave, it's always a pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Well, it's good to have you because even though we're just a couple of weeks into session, you folks have certainly been busy, and you all hit the ground running. And again, because of the role that you hold in the State House, it's good to have your input and expertise. And I guess we'll start with one of the more substantial bills that were passed already that deals with the finances of the city of East Providence. Tell our viewers about that. Why is it important? Why did it need to happen?
As you know, Dave, a lot of our cities and towns are in distressed condition right now, and they need some assistance from the state. And the city of East Providence right now is subject to the authority of a budget commission. And the bill that we passed is going to allow the budget commission, if it deems appropriate, to certify, and I believe it will deem appropriate, to certify to the Department of Revenue for advancement of already scheduled education aid monies. I believe they're going to be advanced a couple of months. So what it's going to, the bill will allow us to assist the citizens of the city of East Providence at no cost to the state, because the roughly $13,000 of interest cost that it would cost the state of Rhode Island will be taken out of the money. So this is an opportunity for the citizens of the state of Rhode Island to assist the citizens of East Providence at no cost to anybody. So we're helping people out.
Essentially, you're giving them money that they would be getting anyways. You're just moving the timetable up a little bit to get them through this rough period right now, and that's good. The people of East Providence must be pleased with that.
Well, I would assume they're pleased. We're certainly doing what we always do, and it's trying to help all of our citizens in our cities and towns. And this will give them the opportunity to stabilize their cash flow until May. And in that time frame, we're hoping and certainly encouraging them to formulate strategies to deal with their current economic fiscal problems.
So I can only guess that in 2012, assisting cities and towns will be high on the agenda of the House of Representatives. Again, getting through these tough economic times, weathering this tough economic storm.
Absolutely, Dave. As we have done at the state level, the cities and towns have to do at the municipal level at this time. And, you know, the state is subject to the strength of the cities and towns. And all of our cities and towns provide services to all of our constituents, and they're the lifeblood of our community. And we have to make sure that they thrive and that they're healthy fiscally. And we are encouraging strategies and working with the cities and towns to help them out financially.
You know, we've talked a lot, the last couple of years about the whole pension crisis, and of course, Speaker Fox and the leadership and both of the House and Senate recognize the importance of the state pension crisis. And in fact, you folks all met in a special mini session in the fall to deal with this situation. And as we talk today about the problems with cities and towns, the municipally administered programs were not part of that package. Why was that, and what will happen moving forward, do you think?
Well, the reason they weren't included in the bill that we passed in November is that the same study was not conducted of the local plans that was conducted of the state plans. Our General Treasurer, Gina Raimondo, did a great job studying the state plans. She must have spent at least 8 months studying the plans, talking to constituents, addressing how it was going to affect people. That study has never been done relative, not to that degree, relative to the pension plans in the cities and towns. They are legally different entities. The state plan is established by legislation. The local plans are established through collective bargaining agreements. They're essentially contracts. They have constitutional protections. The legal analysis is very, very different. So we have to look at all of the plans individually, differently, and come up with strategies to address the unfunded liabilities at the city level.
So at the time you were doing the state, you weren't armed with the same amount of information that you had as you addressed the state crisis. That's what I gathered from what you're saying.
We weren't armed with the same level of information, and even had we had the information, the legal considerations are very different. They require an entirely different analysis. They all have different and individual challenges. So one size does not fit all, so to speak. So we have to look at all the individual cities and towns, look at the challenges, and some don't have challenges. Some are very well funded and in good shape.
Yeah, some communities are healthier than others.
Absolutely. So what we're going to do, and what we required in the last piece of legislation that we did file, is that the local cities and towns do actuarial studies, look at the plans, look at their challenges, put together a remedial course of action, and then they have to report back to us. We will look at what they produce, look at what individual challenges they do have, and give them whatever assistance they need from the state.
What do you know about this study commission, and what role will they play in this whole process? I know the study commission's been assembled by the speaker, and again, really like a laser beam looking at this particular issue. What role will it play?
This study commission will essentially play the same role that the commission that the general treasurer put together played relative to the state pension issues. The commission will gather information, will look at all the nuances of all the individual cities and towns, look at the needs, look at the challenges that all the individual situations pose, and it'll make specific recommendations to us. We expect a report sometime in April, and thereafter we will assess the report and do our due diligence and take a course of action that's appropriate.
Well, as the leader of the House Democrats, you folks wield a lot of influence, and you certainly you have the lion's share of members in the House of Representatives. And as their point person, I'm sure you and your colleagues, as well as other members of the leadership team, have assembled in your own minds what you think might be good priorities for the state in 2012 as we move forward in this session. What are some of your key goals? What are some high priorities that you hope to get accomplished in 2012?
In these times, my priorities have always stayed consistent. We have to continue to work on making our economy stronger, creating more jobs, creating the type of environment that will allow our citizens to thrive, encourage companies to hire more folks. So look at the budget, try to create more efficiencies in the budget, cut costs where we can continue to cut costs, consolidate where we can save some money. We have to continue what we've been doing for the last several years, and I think people are recognizing that the General Assembly has been more business friendly than ever before. We recognize the challenges in the economy, and I believe in 2012 we have to continue the work that we've started, that we've been engaged in for several years, and continue to move our economy and the budget in the right direction. We started with a $300 million plus budget deficit at the start of last session. This session it's roughly little over $100 million. We are addressing the structure so that as we move forward in the future, we're not going to start a session with a budget deficit. So we're going to continue the good work, the cost cutting, the consolidations, the improving of the business climate, so that our citizens thrive and they're better off in the future than they have been in the past several years.
Yeah. I guess every time you can, and you said it pretty well, when you can do economic development and hopefully create some jobs, creating jobs help make a lot of the problems go away. Nothing like it.
There's no social program like a good job, Dave, and we want everybody to have a good job, to be able to support their family, and we are certainly going to work you can't create jobs for everyone. what we can do is help create the environment so that other folks in the economy create the jobs.
We covered a presser last summer with Speaker Fox, and the governor was there, and some members of the Senate, economic development folk on that 195 project, that 195 district, that undeveloped land that's available down there that is being very closely looked at. In fact, a special commission's been put together to help grow that area. As I listened to the various speakers from a myriad of different walks of life, business, industry, it sounded pretty optimistic. It sounded like that could be a future strength where we could be creating some good paying jobs.
Yes, that's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, Dave. We have a new piece of land right in the city of Providence that is subject to development, and that's been the first time in my lifetime that I remember that much land being available, opening up for development. And we've been all looking at it. We want to develop it in a way that produces good, high-paying jobs, create a medical education district that will best serve the city of Providence and the state of Rhode Island. So that opportunity is being looked at very carefully because we want to make sure that's developed correctly, and that's why we created the I-195 Commission last time.
You know, Leader, I'm glad you mentioned that because some pretty smart people are working on that commission. And the thing that I remember hearing at the press conference that day is that they wanted to do it very thoughtfully, rather than just rushing random, helter-skelter to get this type of business here and that type of business over here. They wanted to have synergy. So as you mentioned, the medical and educational district, that the types of jobs that they would be creating would, in addition to being good paying, they would complement one another and would work well together. And it seems as if they're taking their time, but to make sure that they bring the right types of jobs into that area.
I think that's very important. You don't get this opportunity. As I said, it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. You have to do it comprehensively, and as you said, you have to have some type of synergy to it so that jobs complement each other and industries complement each other in that sector so that it best serves all the citizens of Providence and the state. And these are going to, when this district is up and running, it is going to produce and occupy high-paying jobs. These are going to be quality jobs for our citizens.
And boy, talk about a great location. Talk about being, having the freeway accessibility, the water accessibility, being right in the central part of Providence and having that kind of location. I think really bodes well, and again, you want to make sure that it doesn't get screwed up, but the upside, the potential looks really good.
It does, and we have a lot of faith and hope that it's going to be developed appropriately. The city of Providence has so much to offer the business community, as does the state of Rhode Island. I always brag and rave about what qualities we bring to the business community. Unfortunately, we do have some negatives, such as high energy costs. But when you look at our location and you look at our size and the fact that everything is connected and that you have access to all of the different industries that businesses would need access to, including all of the highways and so forth, and the railways, the waterways. I believe Rhode Island is a great place to do business, and we are going to work with the commission and make sure that opportunity is developed appropriately.
Leader, I don't want to live in North Dakota. In all due respect to the fine folks of North Dakota, I love being a cheerleader for Rhode Island because I chose to live here. And in addition to some of these things you just highlighted, Rhode Island happens to be a pretty doggone nice place to live. The quality of life here, we have our problems like any state, of course we do. But when you do the old Ben Franklin balance sheet, the positives versus the negatives, as he used to solve problems by taking a sheet of paper and splitting it down the middle and putting all of the good things on one side and the negatives on the other. This is a good place to raise a family, and it's a good place to live and recreate.
We have a wonderful quality of life. I've always loved living in Rhode Island, and I plan on staying in Rhode Island for the rest of my life. My family is happy here. My friends are happy here. It's a great place to live. And what's always interesting, Dave, is if someone leaves, they always come back. There is no place in the world to live that's as nice and accommodating overall as Rhode Island.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. Now, you've heard the buzz, leader. You're inside the Beltway. You have your thumb on the pulse of what's going on in the community, as well as what's going on in the state politically. The rumor is that the governor, as part of his new budget, is going to be reintroducing the sales tax expansion. Last year, the Assembly rejected that. Let's just, for purposes of this conversation, let's assume that he revisits this again this year. Any thoughts?
My thought is that nothing has changed relative to that, Dave. I'm hoping that those rumors are not necessarily accurate. Last year we heard from the business community very, very clearly. They sent a strong, clear message that they don't want or cannot afford any new taxes, that the cost of doing business is high enough. And a tax increase at this time would be inconsistent with all the other priorities that I set forth for you today. We want to make Rhode Island a better place to work and do business with fewer barriers of entries and a lower cost of doing business. So we certainly don't want to increase it. We don't want to increase the paperwork requirements of our businesses, and we don't want to increase the cost of our businesses. So nothing has changed. I don't expect that that type of proposal would be received with a very warm welcome, and I'm certainly hoping that those rumors are not necessarily true.
But if it's true, it will, in your opinion, more than likely meet the same fate as it did last year.
I would have to assume that at this point. I certainly would not encourage any type of tax increases in this environment. We want to increase our economic activity, our vitality, and our jobs, not do anything that's going to move us in the opposite direction.
Well, things you'll know soon enough, because Governor Chafee will be before the House on January 31st to present that budget. And although we are making progress, the surplus was a little better, I think, than anticipated. There's no question that the General Assembly is going to be forced yet again to be making additional cuts. That has to be a tough part of the job.
It is a tough part of the job. Even when you do have to cut expenses and it's the appropriate thing to do, you never like to do it. And we do what we have to do to make responsible decisions, and responsible decisions sometimes are difficult. And when you ask to be elected to these seats, you have to put yourself in the position that you're willing to make the tough decisions. I always have been, and I find that overall our constituents appreciate an honest dialogue and our willingness to do what's right, even when it's difficult. And sometimes, quite frankly, it's difficult politically, Dave, but you have to make the right decisions on behalf of your constituents.
Well, and again, House Finance has already been meeting, and it's very serious. A lot of time goes into it. And again, although maybe we're moving in the right direction, and if we could catch a break on the other side with an uptick in the economy, if that continues to go well, we can see our way through this. One of my favorite things to talk about on this show, it's one of my favorite pet projects, and I always enjoy getting input from people like yourself. As we look at the economy and as we look at the budget problems and the need to raise additional revenue in Rhode Island, invariably the conversation will turn to gaming. And the expansion of gaming at Twin River is being talked about. It will be on the ballot in the fall. You're thinking about expanding this, table games, et cetera, at Twin River.
I think we have to. I voted in support of putting the referendum on the ballot in November. I believe Newport is interested in being considered to be added. We'll certainly look to see what their town council does. It's our third largest revenue source, and I've always said we have to take responsible action to protect our third largest revenue source. I believe right now the state nets more than $300 million from Twin River. If you look to the north in Massachusetts, they're proposing 3 casinos, I believe. That will impact our revenues from Twin River, and we have to take responsible action that's necessary to protect that. Now, do what I think we have to do, and what I certainly want to do for my constituents, is make sure that they're well informed and that they know what the particular details are of the agreement with Twin River relative to any licensing fees and what the state's take is going to be from the table games. I want and expect that my constituents, all Rhode Islanders, in fact, are fully informed of all the details, so that when they go to the ballot box and cast a vote, that they know what all the terms, conditions, and details are.
So if Newport Grand city government comes to the General Assembly and says, hey, let us in on it too, you think that would be the responsible thing to do, correct?
Yes, I do. I'd like to see, if they're interested, a resolution from their city council. If the city of Newport wants to expand table games to the facility in Newport also, I think that would also be the responsible thing to do. They're going to face challenges from Massachusetts, just as Twin River does, and they're an important part of that revenue stream. So I would encourage it if they want it through a resolution.
Well, again, that represents a big chunk of our revenue right now, gaming in Rhode Island. And as you say, as people are breathing down our neck across the border, I think it would be prudent and responsible for one to protect those interests, especially since, people like recreating in Rhode Island, and people enjoy that aspect of recreation and entertainment. And I think that, again, we have people that want to get into this business that are our neighbors, and we'll see more Rhode Island license plates going to full-fledged casinos if we don't take action. That's just my opinion, we've got to move on this.
I share your opinion. I think it's an important revenue source, and we have to take responsible action. I wish it was on the ballot in the last election cycle, but at this point, we'll have to wait until November, and we certainly want the voters to have the opportunity to vote on this, because it's important to our constituents, to all Rhode Islanders.
Of course. Also, as we talk about gaming, your colleague in the House, Representative Joe Trillo, although he shares a different political faith, has been in the press a lot lately, championing the cause of a casino at Quonset Point. He seems to think this is the place where we ought to build a state-of-the-art kind of gambling mecca, and has been appearing in television, radio, print, discussing this. Your thoughts regarding a casino at Quonset Point and Mr. Trillo's concept?
Well, Representative Trillo is very passionate regarding this particular issue, and I believe he's very well-intentioned. However, we don't have a specific proposal in front of us. I haven't seen a bill. I think he has a general concept. While you're looking at the concept, you have to be very sensitive to the businesses that are already on Quonset Point, and you have to look at the comprehensive plan already in existence as to how Quonset Point is presently being developed, and you don't want to do anything to affect the current development and the investment of the current businesses that are in that area. Some of the concepts he's come up with could certainly raise some concerns with those businesses, and we have to move forward in a very thoughtful manner. And we first have to look to see what the proposal is, but we have to be very mindful that we have economic development and economic strategies in place at Quonset already, and you don't want to interfere with what's already going on there. So
you haven't been able to look at any concrete, solid proposal about this idea for Quonset. Am I understanding you correctly?
That's correct. We haven't seen any legislation regarding what is specifically being proposed. We have a broad idea. I've heard from lots of different individuals that believe that gaming should be expanded. A lot of people believe it should not be expanded. That's a debate that will continue to be discussed. However, we don't have a specific proposal to look at, Dave.
Let me ask you this, Leader, too. We spoke of Providence earlier. What's this I hear about a for-profit college wanting to come to Rhode Island? They claim that they think this is a perfect place to operate a new college in this area. Is this something that you think that the General Assembly will be dealing with this session?
Absolutely. In fact, I plan on introducing the legislation next Tuesday or Wednesday. It's for Newmont University. It's a for-profit university in Utah. They educate in computer science area, which fits well with the synergy of the new knowledge district that we're creating at the 195 area, land that opened up. I believe it's going to create at least 63 jobs by 2016, good, high-paying, quality jobs. And because it's a for-profit institution, I believe that it will produce approximately $1.4 million in tax revenue for the city of Providence. And from what I understand, it's a quality learning institution. They produce a well-educated graduate.
Well, I heard too that they became interested in Providence because some Providence companies and corporations currently go to that school to try to recruit employees, and they thought it would be a natural fit and seemed to be very high on our community.
Yes, that's absolutely true. And when you look at their applications, most of them come from the Northeast. So out of all of the locations that they could look at in the Northeast, they chose Providence, Rhode Island. And once again, you have an institution from Utah that looks at Providence and says, this is the most favorable place for us to start a new university in the Northeast. And lots of folks recognize the benefits that we have here, and we just have to continue to encourage the investments in our community because we have a great community to both live and do business in.
So it sounds like that'll be happening soon in the House. Just a few weeks ago, Chairman McNamara was in your very seat, and he was here talking about the valuation problem that he believes exists on motor vehicles centering around our car tax. He's very passionate. He makes a very good case for that. As the majority leader, do you see this as something that the Democratic caucus will be taking on to try to get before the House this session?
I certainly hope so. We will work with Chairman McNamara very closely. I believe he has a good idea. I agree with the chairman and all of our citizens that our vehicles are being valued too high. So he's looking at going from a clean NADA book value down to a trade-in value, which is much more reasonable for our constituents. Now, when you look at the car tax, I'm hoping, and I shouldn't even say this, but I'm hoping, because none of our constituents like the car tax, that if in the budget process we can find some money to put towards the car tax exemption and increase it again, I would certainly like to do that. We have to look for ways to give our constituents relief on the car tax. The Chairman McNamara is absolutely right.